It's
you actively recruit them.
You are actively recruiting them, for instance, into pornography, or you're actively recruiting them into going to sex parties, or you're actively recruiting them to marry them off. You know, we never used to have those things in the past, because in the past, children were children. If you're under 18, you're under 18. You're a child. You are treated like a child, right? But now, even the way some parents are bringing up their children, either without them knowing or knowingly, they are grooming their children to be sexually abused by their peers. And that's one thing, for instance, that was not there and now is going to be considered an offense. Someone might ask, what is grooming? For instance, having a child take off their clothes and you are taking photos of them and trying to convince them that if you touch yourself like this or you do this, that's grooming. You are introducing them into a space that they don't even comprehend because they're children. So you as an adult who knows what you're doing, you're actually grooming that child. So I want to just present some of the things that were not there and that are now there. And then in the past, we didn't have social media. We didn't have smartphones. We didn't have devices that would record, anyone can use to record and do things. Now we are subjected with those devices, with those things. So what does that mean? That means that the pornography that used to be there, where someone would actually have to come take your child, take them into a studio and film a pornographic thing, now they just need to be in your house, in your space and do it. So how do we respond to that in terms of now the Sexual Offences Act? So we also didn't have, in the past, and I thank God, because when I was younger, like in my early 20s, you can imagine if every other boy that I had a relation with had now photos of me and them, how that would play in these times when they would have to share them and now say, oh, now Senator Gloria, I dated her, look, we were together in this swimming pool, whatever, because that is something that we are being subjected, where when children and teenagers are being teenagers, somehow they are being punished in their adult years by someone coming back now with your nude photos or whatever. Those are instances that were not anticipated, and we are trying now to ensure that revenge porn, which is a thing where you break up with someone and they had secretly recorded you because they want to hurt you or get back to you. They share images and videos of you in the public space. That we are tightening the nose on that. The issue of pornographic material, the issue of taking photos of someone without consent, the issue of grooming children, and one important thing that for me that speaks in that Sexual Offences Act is the fact that you have repeat offenders who are still in the judicial process in their several cases elsewhere, who are now out and about without the knowledge of the public, carrying out new offenses. How do you deal with that? Remember when we had femicide? Not when we have it even now. Remember when we had the issue of Airbnb, and now the femicide was brought to the forefront. And there was one offender, the criminal, who apparently had been reported more than 3 times, but no one knew.
Okay.
So having a register, once convicted as a sexual offender, a register that is public for everyone to access. Then, even as an employer, I'm looking for a driver, I'm looking for a caregiver, I would know this is a sexual offender. Do I really think that this person should come and now take care of children in a nursery school?
So the proposal is to have a list made public of all sexual
One
offenders.
of the proposal in the Sexual Offences Act is because currently there is a register that is accessible to very few people. There is a register of sexual offenders, but the proposal is to have that register public, one. The second thing is that to make grooming illegal and punishable by law. The other thing is that online SGBV, because you can sexually assault someone physically, but you can also sexually offend someone online. Because, for instance, I saw a respectable leader post a photo of their daughter, and I saw several comments of people saying, this is a teenager, this is not an adult, this is a person I can have sex with. That is a red flag, because a person who goes there to type there and write those things, that in itself should be punishable, because what you're doing is that you are implying that even knowing that this is a child, you have the will and you are outrightly saying you are going to, if given a chance, sexually harass this person. So, and also, you know, in spaces, Fred, including here, we don't have safeguarding policies against sexual harassment, both for the man and for the woman. And if you look at the matatu industry, the public transport space, women are sexually harassed. It is bad, Fred. You're going to board a matatu, someone has groped you. You can't do anything about it, they laugh. It's not punishable. It's difficult to collect evidence. It's difficult to... So we are trying to create a sort of regulation within there where the employer somehow has duty of care. Because then if something happens, if I own this business and something happens to you that you are sexually harassed within my confines and they find out that the duty of care which has been imposed on me as an employer, I did not take my responsibility, then it's not only the criminal act but also the person responsible for that establishment. In that situation, then you have matatu owners will be very careful on who they employ. Because you see, it will be like, hey, I was harassed in your matatu.
How far are we in as far as processing these amendments? So
the draft is there. And what I want to thank Cradle, because it's Cradle, there's an organization called Cradle that brought legislators together to run through the proposed amendments that are in the bill so that we can be able to tell you this one, forget about it. This one include. There were some issues that were very legitimate in terms of even consideration of the intersex community, but we had to logically think through them and say, okay, this is going to be impossible. Because then if you start accommodating a specific group with specific needs, then you might have to also consider other specific groups who the public don't want to consider, who have not been legitimized by law. So they were passing it through legislators so that legislators can give a feel of how possible is it for these amendments to go. So I believe the next step would be that it will be fronted through the internal systems of Parliament by a member or by a committee. And after that, then it takes up the stages of moving up the chain from first reading, second reading, and then it will be voted for. Yeah.
Well, it is a very interesting conversation.
But it's a warning shot for people who have been getting away with sexual offenses. Your days are numbered.
Interesting conversation right here. We've been having very interesting conversations this morning with the Senator Gloria Orwoba. One of them is the launch or the official opening of the Bunge Towers. They call it modern, ultra-modern, 26-story Bunge Towers right next to Parliament buildings. And shortly we'll be joining my colleagues Apollo Kamau and Liz Motuko to bring us up to speed with what's happening from that end. But even as we anticipate that, editorial comment this morning has to do with a proposal to increase terms for elected leaders from your colleague Senator Samson Cherargei. And probably, as a final shot, what do you think of that?
I don't support that.
You don't support it?
I don't support it. I don't support it. I feel, in fact, now we are trying to move civil servant from permanent and pensionable to contract. Why are you trying to prolong contracts of elected leaders?